Why a government cannot ever run out of money. Applies to any government of any country. Version 1, the 24th of July, 2024. The reason why a government can never run out of money is because it can always create as much as it ever needs. If a government could not create money, then how is it possible for a government to pass legislation allowing others to create money? Allowing others means delegating the ability. It is only possible to delegate an ability if that ability exists in the first place. It is not possible to delegate something that one cannot do oneself. If I cannot murder someone, then I cannot ask someone else to murder someone on my behalf. However, if I have free speech, then I can always ask someone else to speak on my behalf if I believe that they would present my case better than I could, myself. By the same rationale, if a government can pass legislation so as to allow banks and financial institutions to create money, then that government must have been able to create that money itself. And, therefore, if any government is able to create money itself, it can never run out of money. So why does a government need to borrow? It doesn't. It never has, and it never will. All the thousands of acres of newsprint and media punditry related to government borrowing is only there because the pundits and talking heads haven't a clue about the subject. Is there any proof of this? Actually there is. Twice, in history, it has been conclusively proved, once in the United States, and once in the United Kingdom. 1. United States. In 1860, Abraham Lincoln's government created U.S. Treasury dollar bills in order to pay for the war against the Confederate South. These notes were called greenbacks. They were not issued by any bank or financial institution, but were, instead, directly issued by Lincoln's government. And the population, at the time, treated them as a regular means of exchange. 2. United Kingdom. In 1914, Lloyd George's government created UK Treasury pound notes in order to pay for the First World War against the Kaiser's Germany. These notes were called Bradburys. They were not issued by any bank or financial institution but were, instead, directly issued by George's government. Even without the benefit of high-speed communications, the single-day August bank holiday Monday was stretched to a 4-day public holiday, thereby enabling this new currency to be introduced. The population, at the time, treated them as a regular means of exchange until 1933, when they ceased to be legal tender. So, yes, there is proof. A government of any country can never run out of money, and never needs to borrow. The reason why a government says it needs to borrow is simply to control you, in other words to make you believe it. Because, unless you believed it, you would start to wonder why does the government need to collect taxes? The correct answer being, no government ever needs any taxes. The reason why governments create taxation is to keep its population under control. This must be true, because there is no other possible reason. What other reason could there possibly be? Who do you think is responsible for pounds sterling, if not the United Kingdom's government's treasury? The French? No, they employ the European Union's euros. The United States? No, the United States government's treasury is responsible for US dollars. Is that not true? Isn't it obvious? Isn't it blatantly obvious if you think about it? And it creates a population who are proud to be upstanding taxpayers even though they are, in point of fact, totally duped taxpayers. People who have never bothered to question or research any aspect of the system. These same people will even demonize anyone who suggests, for example, withholding taxes because they are being used to fund illegal wars. So, what is money, anyway? It is credit. And the definition of credit is faith placed in something. Money is, therefore, nothing more than the faith that if you pass some of it to someone who is selling bread, then they will pass a loaf of bread back to you. How is it created? Well, it doesn't grow on trees, and it doesn't grow in one's garden. It is actually created out of thin air, by a mechanism known as fractional reserve banking. Fractional reserve banking. Fractional reserve banking operates on a percentage basis. Take the example of 10%, that would mean that if a bank has total deposits of £5, then that is 10% of the total amount it can create as loans. Which means, in this case, that the bank could create loans totaling £50. But, Where does the extra £45 come from? The answer is thin air. The bank can simply have numbers typed into a ledger, et voila. The £45 is thus created into an account for the borrower to draw from. The borrower then, subsequently, has to find £45 in actual money in order to make the necessary repayments. In fact, the borrower has to find even more than £45 in actual money, because he or she will have to make additional interest payments. This even though no amount of money has ever been created in order to cover any interest payment on any loan that has ever been created. When the loan of £45 was created, only the £45 was created. No extra amount was created, such that the borrower could eventually find it in order to pay the interest. It would have been impossible to create this extra money for two very good reasons. How much would need to be created, bearing in mind that interest rates can fluctuate over time, and who would it be paid to? It could not be paid to the borrower, because that would mean that he or she simply borrowed a larger amount. Are all the previous slides a load of rubbish? Well, not according to the Bank of England. This is an extract from the bank's first quarterly bulletin for the year 2008. Banks extend credit by simply increasing the borrowing customer's current account, which can be paid away to wherever the borrower wants, by the bank writing a check on itself. That is, banks extend credit by creating money, which is exactly what has been described in the foregoing slides.